now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, August 14th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is me, Chet Walczyk. I'm glad you were able to join us. We'll kick it off with the weekend edition cover section. Artificial colors transitioning out of food. Products may have same taste, but appear different. The next time you reach for a favorite cereal, drink, or box of macaroni and cheese, take a closer look. The package may call attention to the artificial colors that are no longer inside, and the food may appear a little different, or even, guess what, cost more. The shift goes far beyond a handful of products. Food manufacturers and retailers are reformulating a wide range of foods as they move away from certified synthetic colors. The changes could alter how some foods look, what labels say, and in some cases, how much shoppers pay. I think we are going to see a lot of confusion, said Phil Lempert, a grocery industry analyst and editor of SupermarketGuru.com. The grocery aisle may start looking a little different as companies reformulate products, Lempert said. Shoppers may notice new package claims. Look for language such as no artificial colors or made without certified synthetic colors. Different shades. Some foods and drinks may appear less vibrant even when the flavor has not changed. Old and new versions. Original and reformulated products may temporarily appear together while older inventory sells through. Possible price changes. Alternative colors and added testing can raise manufacturing costs, though not every product will cost more. And new look, same nutrition facts. Removing artificial dyes does not automatically make a food healthier. Check the ingredient list and nutrition information. Sally Lyons-Watt, Global Executive Vice President and Chief Advisor for Consumer Goods and Food Service Insights at Circana, said shoppers are most likely to notice color changes. Some reformulated products may appear less vibrant than shoppers are used to, she said. If companies don't impact the taste, then I do believe consumers will be able to bridge that psychological gap, she said. Companies are promoting the changes through packaging, store signs, advertisements, and social media. Shoppers may still have to compare packages to determine what changed and whether products taste the same. The overhaul has been building for years as consumers seek simpler, more understandable ingredient lists. It has gained speed amid heightened scrutiny of food additives and Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again agenda. Manufacturers have announced plans to remove certified synthetic colors, while retailers are adopting their own standards. Some stores are going beyond their own brands and setting standards for products sold on their shelves. Since May, Target has required cereals sold in its stores to be made without certified synthetic colors. Sam's Club said all foods and beverages sold under its Members Mark brand meet the company's Made Without standards after removing certified synthetic colors and more than 40 other ingredients. Aldi plans to eliminate additional ingredients from its private label products by the end of 2027. Kraft Heinz, General Mills, and other companies have also announced reformulation plans, though the trend predates the current political attention. Kraft Heinz recently introduced Jell-O Simply, a line made without artificial colors or artificial sweeteners, as part of a consumer-driven shift, said Carolyn Bullis, the company's president of Hydration, Desserts, and Meals. Replacing a synthetic dye is not always as simple as exchanging one ingredient for another. A new RTI International report commissioned by the National Confectioners Association found that replacing synthetic dyes can affect far more than a product's recipe. The transition can involve agricultural production, global sourcing, manufacturing capacity, packaging, storage, shipping, and shelf life testing. Many alternative colorants come from plants, algae, or insects, making their supply more variable and geographically concentrated than synthetic dyes, the report found. Kraft Heinz uses blind consumer testing when it changes a product's source of color. Shoppers receive the original and reformulated versions without knowing which is which. Bolus said consumers' preference for the reformulated version rises sharply after they learn it was made without certified synthetic colors. Consumer reactions varied by product. Matching familiar Jell-O colors was important because consumers used the product in holiday desserts and recipes. Children were accepting of removing color from Kool-Aid jammers because the drinks are sold in opaque pouches, Bolus said. Other companies are testing reformulated products alongside the originals. PepsiCo introduced Simply NKD Doritos and Cheetos without certified synthetic colors rather than immediately replacing legacy products. 5 Simply NKD Doritos products generated more than $3 million in sales during their first month in stores. Naturally derived color alternatives can be more expensive and harder to obtain in the quantities large manufacturers require. The RTI report also warned that a rapid industry-wide transition could put significant upward pressure on the cost of alternative colorants because agricultural production and processing capacity cannot expand immediately. Lempert expects some of those costs to reach shoppers. We are going to see higher prices because when you formulate to get rid of these artificial colors and use more natural substances, that's going to cost manufacturing more, he said. Consumers may accept a modest increase for something they value, Lyons Wyatt said, but a large premium could push a product out of the shopping cart after years of grocery inflation. Companies may have more success charging extra when reformulation adds another benefit, such as more protein or fiber, rather than asking shoppers to pay more solely because artificial colors were removed. Circana research shows 60% of consumers examine food packaging, including information on the front and back. Now, people are like, wait a second, what's in my food? Lyon Watt said. Consumers trying to avoid artificial ingredients may view dye removal positively, but a product can be free of synthetic dyes and still behind sugar, sodium, or calories. Original and reformulated versions may briefly appear together while existing inventory is sold. Clear labeling can help shoppers identify reformulated products and understand what changed. Some shoppers will actively seek products without synthetic dyes. Others will continue prioritizing price, taste, and familiarity. Caroline Leavitt to leave White House post. Press secretary is known for her combative style. Dateline, Washington. President Donald Trump said White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is stepping down from her position at the end of the month to spend more time with her family, a departure that opens up one of the White House's most visible roles. Trump announced Leavitt's exit in an August 12th post on Truth Social, calling her one of my most trusted aides and wonderful. He said he understands and respects her decision, adding that Leavitt will remain one of his top outside advisors and an influential voice within the Republican Party. Caroline has been one of the best White House press secretaries in the history of the office. Thank you, Caroline, for a job well done, Trump said. Leavitt, 28, the youngest press secretary in White House history, has served in the role for Trump's entire second term. Known for her combative and energetic communication style behind the podium, Leavitt has often set the tone for the White House's handling of a wide range of issues. Leavitt recently returned to her position after taking maternity leave following the birth in May of daughter Viviana, the second child of Leavitt and her husband Nicholas Riccio. The couple also has a boy, Nicholas, or Nico, who turned 2 in July. Serving as the White House press secretary over the past year and a half has been the honor and adventure of a lifetime, Leavitt said in a statement. She thanked Trump for granting her the opportunity and entrusting me with the distinct privilege of speaking on his behalf at the White House podium. Leavitt pointed to juggling being a mother to a newborn child while also carrying out the responsibilities of press secretary, calling it the most rewarding yet challenging season of my life, to say the least. The truth is, since returning to the White House after the birth of my daughter, I have felt in my heart that I cannot be the best mom my 2 young children deserve while devoting the constant time, energy, and attention required of the White House press secretary, Leavitt said. And that is why I have ultimately made the bittersweet decision to depart the White House and embark on a new chapter in my life. Trump did not say who he will name to replace Leavitt, who worked in the White House during Trump's first term as a press aide and later unsuccessfully ran for Congress as a Republican in her native New Hampshire in 2022. Trump has had little turnover among his top White House aides during his second term. He shuffled through 4 press secretaries during his first 4 years in office from 2017 to 2021. Sean Spicer, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Stephanie Grisham, and Kayleigh McEnany. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 12 minutes after the hour. And now a little Hollywood news. Reiner indictment brings new allegation in killing of parents. Nick Reiner has officially been indicted for the stabbing death of his parents, Michelle and Rob Reiner. Officials released the grand jury's formal indictment August 12th, revealing the 32-year-old is facing 2 counts of murder with the special circumstance allegations of multiple murders and murder by means of lying in wait. Nick Reiner has pleaded not guilty to both charges. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman announced the indictment in a statement saying, "This was a profound betrayal by someone who was loved and trusted by the very people he is accused of killing." Hochman also highlighted the new special circumstance allegation of lying in wait. Reiner faces an additional allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, a knife, according to the release. "We hope that by having a grand jury return an indictment in this case, it will bring us one step closer to a trial and achieving justice," Hochman said. Reiner was arrested December 14th after his father, acclaimed Hollywood director 78, and mother 70 were found dead in their Brentwood, California home earlier that evening. Authorities said Nick Reiner fatally stabbed the couple, who died from multiple sharp force injuries, according to the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's findings. Their death certificates list Rob Reiner's time of death at 3:45 p.m. on December 14th and Michelle Reiner's as 3:46 p.m. the same day. Prosecutors filed formal criminal charges against Nick Reiner on December 16th, and he later pleaded not guilty. The latest indictment, which the district attorney said was returned July 20th, adds the lying in wait circumstances to the previous murder charges. In June, Reiner filed a petition for access to his trust fund, alleging he has been denied any of the money that he was entitled to receive when he turned 30, according to documents previously obtained by USA Today. In the filing, he said he is unable to pay for his legal counsel or basic necessities while incarcerated. This came after his high-profile criminal defense attorney, Alan Jackson, withdrew as counsel because of circumstances beyond his control. In a declaration in Reiner's petition, Jackson said his firm stands ready, willing, and able to resume representation of Mr. Reiner if the funds become available. The next court date for the trust fund case is set for later this month, and Reiner has another court date for the murder case in September. Well, I can assure you this story does not apply to me. Powerball's $1 billion winner can remain anonymous. Powerball has a new billionaire. The winner may never be named. The Illinois player who hit the $1.04 billion jackpot on Wednesday can request anonymity under state law, potentially keeping one of the biggest lottery wins in U.S. history a mystery. Here's what to know about winning Powerball and your privacy. You must explicitly request confidentiality by checking the correct box on the Illinois lottery winner claim form at the time you claim your prize. If you forget to check the box or fail to request it when submitting your claim, lottery officials will publicly release your name, home city, and the prize amount. So does anything remain private? Even if you do not opt out, the state will not publish your street address or phone number. And what's the deadline for the winner to claim the jackpot? The winning ticket must claim the prize by October 11th, which is 60 days from the drawing, if they choose the one-time prize worth an estimated cash value of $450 million. But if the winner chooses a 30-year annuity, the deadline is a year from the win, meaning August 12th of next year. And you ask, what about privacy in other states? Out of the 45 states or U.S. territories that participate in Powerball, only 10 states allow you to remain fully anonymous no matter how much money you win. States that allow anonymity after lottery wins: Arizona, Arkansas, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Kansas, Maryland, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, New Jersey, North Dakota, Oregon, South Carolina, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. And guess who's missing from that list? Good old New York. You're going to have to come clean if you hit that $1 billion next time around. So don't say I didn't warn you. New El Nino forecast warns of historic event. Climate troublemaker El Nino continues to strengthen and now has a greater than 90% chance of becoming a very strong event during the fall and winter of 2026-27. In addition, by the fall season, there is a 69% chance of a historic event that would exceed the strength of previous El Nino events dating back to 1950, according to a report released by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. El Nino, a natural warming of seawater in the Pacific Ocean, affects weather and climate patterns around the world. Impacts often include a boost of hurricanes in the Pacific Basin and a spike in global temperatures, as well as droughts and flooding in many areas. El Nino continued to strengthen over the past month, the Climate Prediction Center said, with sea surface temperatures more than 3.6 degrees above average in the eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean. The Climate Prediction Center report, which synthesizes several climate models from North America and abroad, all said that this El Nino will continue to strengthen even through the end of the year. With an event of this magnitude, the chances of experiencing impacts consistent with El Nino are larger, but they are not guaranteed, the Climate Prediction Center said. So you may ask, what is an El Nino? El Nino is a natural climate pattern in which surface seawater temperatures in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean are warmer than average. Its name means the little boy, or Christ child in Spanish. El Nino was originally recognized by fishermen off the coast of South America in the 1600s with the appearance of unusually warm water in the Pacific Ocean around Christmas. The entire natural climate cycle is often officially known as El Nino Southern Oscillation, called ENSO by scientists. The cycle swings between warmer and cooler seawater in a region along the equator in the tropical Pacific. La Nina is marked by cooler than average ocean water in the region. Although predicted to be a potent one, the predicted 7-month-long duration of this El Nino event is not unusually long, according to Michelle Lahiro, physical scientist and ENSO team lead at NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. I don't see anything atypical about the starting season or potential duration of this El Nino, she said. I don't see evidence for something atypical about length of the current development, she added. We are currently observing warming in the tropical Pacific consistent with El Nino. As a result, we are also seeing El Nino impacts develop in areas that are expected to have El Nino impacts this time of year. For example, drier than average conditions across Indonesia, India, Central America, the Horn of Africa, and wetter than average condition in parts of Chile. Why is the El Nino important? One of the most important impacts of El Nino is that it often boosts hurricane activity in the Pacific and decreases it in the Atlantic. So far this year, that's held true, as the Pacific has been active while the Atlantic has been rather quiet. Other than the hurricane impacts, El Nino usually doesn't have a strong summer climate impact for most of the United States. But the ENSO cycle is the primary factor U.S. government scientists consider when announcing their winter weather forecast because it mainly influences the USA's weather in the colder months. During an El Nino winter, the southern third of the United States typically experiences wetter than average conditions, while the northern third sees enhanced chances of below normal precipitation, according to the Climate Prediction Center. As for temperatures, El Nino winters are typically warmer across the continental United States, especially from the Pacific Northwest to the Great Lakes. Matthew Rosenkrantz, NOAA's lead hurricane seasonal forecaster, said, "The warmth can extend farther down the west coast and into the southeast, but those signals are much less certain. And on a worldwide level, El Nino will give an extra boost to global temperatures," stated Alvaro Silva, a World Meteorological Organization scientist. "We know that during El Nino years, the global temperatures normally reach record levels." El Nino can have a devastating impact on the world economy, to the tune of trillions of dollars around the globe, and the current pattern is likely to follow suit. For example, the 1982-83 El Nino led to $4 trillion in global income losses, while the 1997-98 event cost about $5.7 trillion. The current forecast imply this could be the costliest El Nino on record. Justin Mencken, a Dartmouth Geography Associate Professor who studies El Nino economic impacts, said, "Although they're not official terms, some excited scientists and headline writers have dubbed the current El Nino a super or Godzilla El Nino." 11 facing marriage scam charges. Fake unions help foreign nationals get green cards. 11 people in, guess where? New York have been charged in connection with a sham marriage operation that federal prosecutors say arranged more than 1,000 fake unions designed to help foreign nationals fraudulently acquire green cards in the United States. The international enterprise operated for more than a decade and mostly involved Chinese citizens who paid as much as $100,000 per marriage, according to a two-count indictment unsealed August 12th. The defendants and their co-conspirators allegedly operated a nationwide and international multi-million-dollar marriage fraud scheme using participants to abuse United States immigration laws for their own profit, said Jamie McDonald, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, in a news release announcing the charges. Today's arrests have dismantled a central component of one of the largest marriage fraud schemes charged in United States history. Each is charged with one count of conspiracy to commit marriage fraud and immigration fraud, and one count of conspiracy to encourage the unlawful residence of aliens in the United States. The charges carry maximum penalties of up to 5 and 10 years, respectively. As alleged, this decade-long scheme turned marriage fraud into an international business model, arranging countless sham marriages and causing hundreds of fraudulent green card applications to be submitted to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. The defendants range in age from 26 to 72, and most live in the New York City area and its northern suburbs. The network operated from at least 2016 through July 2025, according to the indictment, orchestrating fraudulent marriages between foreign nationals and U.S. citizens in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida, in addition to China and the Melanesian nation of Vanuatu. The scheme involved facilitators who identified foreign national customers, recruiters who found American citizens willing to participate in the ruse, and assistants who prepared immigration paperwork and coordinated submission of fraudulent green card applications, the indictment said. The operation also relied on marriage officiants, attorneys, tax preparers, and insurance providers, among others. Foreign nationals paid facilitators up to $100,000 to arrange fake marriages and lawful residency assistance, and recruiters received commissions of up to $5,000 for each enlisted participant, according to the indictment. Participating American citizens were paid up to $30,000, generally in installments tied to milestones in the green card application process. Hundreds of U.S. citizens were recruited into sham marriages, the indictment said, fabricating evidence to make the unions appear genuine, such as staging photographs, establishing joint financial and utility accounts, filing joint tax returns, and obtaining joint insurance policies. The defendants and their co-conspirators then prepared and submitted green card applications with materially false statements, then coached marriage participants on how to lie to immigration officers during interviews to conceal the ruse. Prosecutors believe the network collected tens of millions of dollars from foreign nationals seeking lawful permanent resident status. Anyone willing to lie, cheat, or steal their way to legal immigration status is a direct threat to America's national security, said U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow. USCIS will continue to expose fraud, defend the rule of law, and ensure immigration status is reserved for those who truly qualify. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 29 minutes after the hour, and I'd like to take you to the opinion section for Friday, August 14th. And we have a piece written by Nicole Russell. Miss Russell is an opinion columnist with USA Today, and she lives in Texas with her 4 kids. Miss Russell's piece, titled, I voted for, quote, America first, not unending war. I voted for President Trump in 2024, and I do not regret it. In his first year, he delivered on many of his core promises: lower taxes, lower inflation, and a secure border. Migrant crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border are now at their lowest level in 50 years. These are extraordinary feats. But with the Iran war now passing 5 months, I am growing disillusioned with Trump. He has chosen to focus on Iran as much as, if not more than, issues that actually affect everyday Americans. It's proving to be an extraordinary unforced error, and it is backfiring. The polls are starting to show it. Trump's Iran war, which started February 28th and was supposed to take just weeks, has drained U.S. resources significantly, costing taxpayers $37 billion so far. According to Reuters, the U.S. Army has used up most of its stockpile of long-range missiles, leaving the nation vulnerable for the foreseeable future. Meanwhile, despite constant talk of diplomacy and ceasefires, there's no actual resolution in sight. Every day brings news of another negotiation that fails to materialize. Toward the end of July, Trump threatened to bomb power plants or bridges in Iran. Then, on August 3rd, Trump said, "I want to give them every last chance before decapitation. We'll see what happens." He has said time and again that a deal is imminent, yet the art of the deal eludes the deal maker in chief. At first, I argued that pressuring Iran like this was strategic, not stupid, a pointed tactic. I supported the goal of Operation Epic Fury, ending Iran's totalitarian regime. I believed that Iran's nuclear capabilities posed a threat to America, though how to handle that threat raised harder questions. But the months since February 28th have been an endless merry-go-round of threats, pressure, and ceasefire attempts that go nowhere. The Babylon Bee, a satirical website, captured the charade well in an August 4th post. Trump warns Iran this is their fourth to last chance at peace. It would be funnier if it weren't hurting Americans. The Real Clear Politics average shows that 61% of Americans disapprove of how the president is handling Iran and the economy. An Economist YouGov poll published July 28th found that 43% of non-MAGA Republicans disapprove of Trump. That is a lot of unhappy people. The Iran war has directly affected gasoline prices, which have stayed high for months and won't be coming down anytime soon. It's also raising the threat of higher inflation, though for now, incredibly, inflation has fallen to 3.5% in June from 4.2% in May. That's still a boon for Trump and for Americans. But this is not what Americans voted for, largely because of Trump's own promises. He was wary of Iran and emphasized deterrence, but he also campaigned on an America First agenda and a no new wars policy. After winning re-election in 2024, Trump declared, "I am not going to start a war. I am going to stop wars." I still believe Iran's threat needed to be handled, forcefully and finally, at some point. But part of Trump's populist appeal was that he would focus on the everyday issues plaguing Americans, like the economy and immigration. One of my hopes for the Trump administration was that his populism would appeal to a broader range of voters and win some of them over to conservative ideas, like lower taxes and border security. But the Iran war has been a huge stumbling block to that. If this is conservatism, then no thanks, they will say. Even if he deserves credit for last year's accomplishments, the Iran war has been such a blight that it's hard to ignore. I am not naive enough to believe there's a direct correlation between high grocery and housing prices and the Iran war. Foreign affairs don't make my grocery bill top $1,000 a month. But rightly or wrongly, a nearly $40 billion war will eventually hit Americans' bottom line and their view of the president who started it. Watching Trump go round and round with Iran as the military nearly depletes its own stockpile of munitions and Americans struggle to pay for gas and grocery feels a bit like watching a CEO/office supply budgets while quietly running the company into the ground. Trump still has my support, but I'm more and more disappointed with his ongoing conflict with Iran, and so are millions of Americans. And again, this opinion piece was written by Nicole Russell, who is an opinion columnist with the USA Today. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 36 minutes after the hour, and we jump over to the money section, which, as we know on Fridays, is the travel and tourism section. And a highlight piece written by Christopher Elliott, USA Today on travel columnist. Mr. Elliott's piece, The Summer Slog. Traveling in August, why flights and hotels can fall apart. Welcome to August, my friends. The month travel goes to die. Can you feel it? The system has been redlining for months, and now it's starting to crack. Planes are filthy and hotels look neglected. The staff is exhausted and done with you. If you're packing your bags for vacation, here is what you need to know. You are buying a product the travel industry can't always deliver. Last month, with its storm delays, high cancellations, and technology snafus, was just the warm-up for air travelers. In good years, like 2025, cancellation rates stayed around 1% in August. But in 2024, it was running about twice that rate, with major carriers canceling more than 13,000 domestic flights. Fortunately, your vacation is not a lost cause. You just need to adjust the way you travel, lower your expectations a little, and adopt a few survival strategies. So why is the system breaking? Delbert Lee has tracked this breakdown for years. He's a former vice president of sales at a travel agency, and he's consistently observed a 30% jump in service complaints every August. The root cause is simple, Lee told me. Capacity peaks and starts to degrade by late July. He calls it operational decay. The service infrastructure is designed for a 60-day sprint, not a 100-day marathon. By the time mid-August rolls around, the machinery of travel starts to sputter. You see it in the little things, or in Isabella Rossi's case, the gritty things. Rossi, a product officer for a social networking company in San Francisco, checked into a vacation rental in Half Moon Bay earlier this summer. She already saw the cracks forming. The balconies were covered in dirt and old leaves. The kitchen did not have the basics, not even sugar, salt, or coffee. It felt like the host had stopped caring, she said. It happens at hotels, too. Brian Clark, a nurse anesthetist from Utah, recalled a late summer trip where the fatigue was on display everywhere. His hotel room smelled, and the carpet had black traffic spots. The grout in the shower needed a power washer, he said. It was a property that had clearly been hammered by guests since May. The housekeeping staff was focusing on turnover and not cleaning. Dirty carpets are one thing. The real problem with August is the human element. By this time of year, the college kids who staff the resorts are packing up. They've got to go back to school. I have seen restaurants, golf resorts, hotels, all scrambling to cover for the last few weeks of summer because the staff has up and left, said Susan Stevens, a retired communications consultant who owns a vacation home in Michigan. The tourists are still there, and the weather is beautiful, but there's no one left to serve the clam chowder. The employees who remain are running on fumes. Susan Sharon, founder of Cotier Trips, said flight attendants and gate agents are just fellow humans with frayed nerves. Everyone goes into survival mode in August, she said. Clark noticed this in the sky. He was on a delayed flight last summer, and the airline blamed crew availability, a classic burnout excuse. He observed a flight crew that looked exhausted. They weren't rude, he said, but they just weren't present. If the carpets are stained and the planes are late, why do we travel in August? It is a fear of missing out, said Joe Cronin, CEO of International Citizens Insurance. He said we are trying to cram in those end-of-summer break plans. We treat travel like a checklist that must be completed before Labor Day. And that is the problem. We have high expectations of a perfect vacation, but the industry can't really deliver on its promises. Service providers are exhausted, service quality declines, and traveler expectations of the perfect vacation are still as high as ever, he said. Hotel rates peak in August, so you're paying Ritz-Carlton prices for a Motel 6 experience. So why are we surprised when something goes wrong? So here's how to survive the burnout. I know what you're thinking. Chris, I already booked the non-refundable tickets. What should I do? Well, you've got choices. You can cancel and go in January, or you can change the way you travel. First, lower the bar a little. If you travel in August, stop expecting perfection. You aren't going to get it. If the flight's on time and the sheets are clean, you win. Book the first flight of the day. Sharon advises choosing morning flights. The crews are fresher and the planes haven't had time to break yet. Find a quiet place. Airports are getting more crowded. Chris Gwilliam, an executive with Airport Dimensions, recommends you pre-book a lounge. If you can't get into a lounge, find a gate that isn't being used. Just get away from everyone else. And pack your manners. I wrote a chapter about this in my book, The Unauthorized Travel Manual. When everyone else is stressed and entitled, do not add to the noise. Personally, I am planning to steer clear of the chaos. I'm in Seoul, Korea in August, which is definitely outside of tourist season. Yeah, it's ridiculously hot, but probably no worse than Las Vegas or Palm Springs. No matter where you go, here's some advice you can take with you. Slow down. More than anything else, it's the frantic pace of an August vacation that will kill you. Travel isn't a race, and there's no prize for being the first person to board a flight. And now we have our weekly Disney update, written by Eve Chen, another one of USA Today's travel contributors. Disney World changes things up. What guests should know before their trip. Halloween decorations are already going up at Walt Disney World. Soon, the Florida resort will welcome some of the biggest crowds of the year. However, some longtime guests are wondering if their next visit will feel different after changes announced this summer, which many see as efforts to curb resort hopping, a cheap and popular pastime on non-park days. Like park hopping, which involves visiting multiple theme parks on the same day, resort hopping involves visiting different Disney resort hotels. Whether it's to grab a quick snack, buy a souvenir, take selfies, or simply appreciate the themed scenery, it allows guests to stay immersed in the Disney bubble without spending much or any money. Here's what guests should know before their next Disney World trip. What are the changes to Disney World in 2026? Well, in late June, the resort began limiting access to free resort transportation at its Disney Springs shopping, dining, and entertainment complex. Now, only guests with stays or experiences booked at Disney resort hotels may take Disney buses and boats to them from Disney Springs. Guests of Disney's Port Orleans resorts in particular lauded the move on social media, following complaints of long lines for water taxis because of the popularity of Mickey-shaped beignets at Port Orleans French Quarter. Guests choose to stay at Disney resort hotels because of the unique benefits and experiences that come with staying on the property. This effort helps us protect the experience for our resort guests so they can enjoy those benefits as intended, Disney said. Around the same time as the Disney Springs change, Disney World confirmed that it had permanently sunsetted its giant gingerbread house at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa, a huge draw over the holidays. For years, guests would come from all over and pack the lobby as they paused for pictures or lined up to buy baked treats from a walk-up kiosk inside the gingerbread house. Going forward, the Grand Floridian will instead feature miniature holiday displays around its property. The move follows the recent addition of the hotel's Perch Bar, which further limits foot traffic in the lobby. So is Disney ending resort hopping? Well, no. Disney is not ending resort hopping. The only restriction for resort bus or water taxi access is at Disney Springs, which notably offers free parking. Guests are still able to take free resort transportation to Disney hotels from all over 4 Disney World theme parks, which do charge for parking. Some guests got nervous after reading this line in this year's holiday announcements on the official Disney Parks blog. And here's the line, quote, "For guests staying at the resorts or for those with valid dining reservations, the Disney Resorts Collection offers a wide array of bright and merry holiday decor," close quote. They interpreted that to mean that decor would only be for the enjoyment of guests staying or dining on property. However, similar language was used both in 2024 and 25 without exclusivity. So can I park at a Disney hotel for free? Well, yes and no. Guests staying at Disney World resort hotels get free parking at the theme parks and at the specific hotel where they're staying. They may not park at other resort hotels unless they have an experience booked there. Any guest with an experience booked at any resort hotel may park there for free. That includes a dining reservation, a salon or spa appointment, or other types of experiences like Sangria University at Disney's Coronado Springs or a carriage ride at Disney's Fort Wilderness. These terms have not changed. Standard theme park parking currently costs $35 per day for standard cars and motorcycles. It's $40 per day for oversized vehicles like RVs, limos, buses, and vehicles with trailers. Closer preferred parking costs between $50 and $60 a day. Proposed 72-hour New York to Los Angeles train stalls over a deal with Amtrak. Ameristar Rail hopes to begin service in May of 28. More than a year after a company shared a proposal for speedy coast-to-coast U.S. train service, operations have not yet begun. Ameristar Rail's transcontinental chief train would carry passengers, truck drivers, and their tractor trailers between Los Angeles and New York in under 72 hours, a July 2025 news release said. The company said at the time that the train, using private financing, could begin operating on May 10th, 2026, ahead of America's 250th birthday and the FIFA World Cup, subject to operating agreements with host railroads. America Star Rail presented the project to Amtrak, saying that the route would be more profitable than its current long-distance service. However, Scott Spencer, Ameristar Rail's chief operating officer, said the company was not able to meet that launch date because it does not yet have a joint venture agreement with Amtrak. The key approval needed is from Amtrak because we need a joint venture to partner with them, he told USA Today. This is because the Transcontinental Chief needs to be operated, branded, ticketed, and marketed as an Amtrak train in partnership with Ameristar Rail as required by congressional statutes and host freight railroads. Amtrak did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Amtrak spokesperson Beth Toll previously said in a statement that the company reviewed a letter from Ameristar Rail and determined that it was lacking a fundamental business case to support its lofty proposal. Spencer said Ameristar Rail is still actively pursuing this opportunity with many mayors, economic development interests, chambers of commerce, and logistics owners and investors across the country along the route, and now intends to begin service in May of 2028 in time for the Summer Olympics. Hotel review. Universal Helios guests get a grand time. Dateline, Orlando, Florida. Again, a piece written by Eve Chen. I almost always recommend staying on property when visiting theme parks because of the proximity and built-in perks. For guests visiting Universal Epic Universe, it doesn't get any closer to Universal Helios Grand Hotel. The towering hotel is so integrated with the sprawling park, it's part of the scenery. But the best view is from inside Helios. My family loved watch Epic's new nightly spectacular show, Universal Celestial Good Night, from the comfort of our room during a recent stay, and essentially rolling out of bed and into the park the next morning through the hotel's exclusive park entrance. But perks like these come at a premium, which may or may not be worth it to you. Our stay was far too short because of flight disruptions that ate up an entire day of our 2-day trip. We arrived at Helios Grand at about 8:30 p.m. with just enough time to check in and head to our room for Celestial Good Night, which we watched from floor-to-ceiling windows with music piped throughout. We didn't stay in long because we wanted to enjoy Helios' expansive pool and grab a late dinner. I had previously dined at the hotel's rooftop restaurant and bar, Bar Helios, but after a long day of travel, my kids weren't up for a leisurely sit-down meal. That also eliminated Helios' other restaurant, Flora Taverna. The hotel does have a takeaway cafe and room service, but we chose the Lotus Lagoon pool bar for convenience. Though pricey, my $25 Goddess Burger was one of the best burgers I've had at any resort, and getting to swim until the food was delivered to our lounge chairs felt like the best splurge. Is staying at Helios Grand Hotel worth it? Well, to my eyes, yes, but it depends on the time of year, your budget, and what you want out of your vacation. I don't like to pay more than $400 for a hotel room anywhere, so I would personally not stay at Helios Grand when rates are higher or if I weren't visiting Epic Universe. You have to decide what makes the most sense for you. If you want to stay close to Epic, you don't want to spend as much on your hotel, you could stay at either Universal Stella Nova and Terra Luna across the street from the park. So what are the benefits of staying at the Universal Helios Grand Hotel? The biggest perk is proximity to Epic Universe and the hotel's exclusive entrance to it. Other benefits shared by Universal's Orlando's other resort hotels include early park entry, free resort transportation, and the ability to charge purchases to your room. And how much does a Helios Grand Hotel cost? Well, prices vary by date and room type. As of August 5th, the nightly rate for a standard 2-queen room for 2 adults and 2 children was listed as $268 on September 1st. That's a relatively random weekday after the height of summer, but before the rush of the resort's Halloween horror nights and holiday seasons. A Park View 2-queen room for the same night at those times was listed at $509. The same room would cost $802 for standard and $1,025 for Park View on November 28th, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, a popular time for park visits. I paid a discounted media rate during my stay, closer to early September pricing. You are listening to reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, August 14th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been me, Chet Walczyk. I'm glad you were able to join us. I hope you have a great summer weekend. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have History Magazine from our friends at Mind's Eye. At 2 o'clock is episode number 2 of We the Women by Nora O'Donnell. And at 3 o'clock is New York Magazine. Stay with us.
now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Nancy. The Life section, which is Section B. Music. Green Day's Road Stories fuel new film Nimrods from Brian Truitt. Some teens go off to college to realize their dreams. Green Day hit the road in a bookmobile. Before turning 20, the members of this iconic Bay Area punk trio, Billie Joe Armstrong, Mike Dirnt, and Tré Cool, toured the world leading up to their breakthrough success with the 1994 album, Dookie. Episodes from that nomadic life are woven into the coming-of-age narrative of Nimrods. In theaters, August 14th. You always have that teenage heart, even though we're middle-aged men. It's important to have that feeling, the vitality and the youth of it, says Armstrong, age 54. In writer-director Lee Kirk's music comedy, Mason Thames, Kyle Kaufman, and Ryan Faust play Kansas City kids who get a call that their band, the Analog Dogs, have been invited to open for Green Day's New Year's Eve show in L.A., not knowing it's a prank. The youngsters head out on a journey full of friendship, love, rocking tunes, and bad puns. The latter come courtesy of Gravy, a puppet Dirnt used back in the day to entertain his pals on the road that inspired a cinematic counterpart. He would have been really happy with the performance of the actor Gravy, Dirnt, age 44, jokes. Armstrong wanted to make a Green Day-inspired movie, but although the band would appear, it was important that it be someone else's story. The Green Day frontman reached out to Kirk, who cast Armstrong as an aging rocker in 2016's Ordinary World, and Kirk listened to them tell tales from the road until he had enough nuggets of stuff for a screenplay, the director says. Green Day discusses real-life incidents that get the Hollywood treatment in Nimrods. Like Billie Joe Armstrong, the main character in Nimrods lost his dad in childhood. Though the movie parents aren't exactly pleased when they find out their kids are traveling across the country, Green Days were all for it. Dint recalls his mom being super supportive of them touring as teens, and Cool's dad would drive the trio around in a refurbished bookmobile in the early days, which inspired the Analog Dogs touring in an ice cream truck. Armstrong's 95-year-old mother, Ollie, still comes to Green Day gigs. We used to rehearse in the living room while she was making spaghetti, Armstrong says. She loved it. The personal touch of Tam's character, Tommy, was inspired by Armstrong's, including the emotional impact of having a musical father who died when he was a kid. While Tommy's not supposed to be Billy Joel, Kirk says, that really informed the movie, being about a family dealing with a crisis and coming back together. Green Day and the Analog Dogs both played to less than adoring crowds. Needing money on the road, the Analog Dogs stop at a country bar, sign up for a battle of the bands, and win over an initially skeptical crowd to take the victory. Though they didn't have any weird moments at musical competitions, Armstrong recalls playing a nearly hour-long show at Foreign Foods Day in 1990 at their high school. There are YouTube clips for those needing to see a very Green Day. I thought it was an incredible performance, but there's nobody watching us except for a couple of our friends, Armstrong remembers. That was kind of funny. Tommy finds love on the road, just like Billie Joe Armstrong. Heading to L.A., Tommy runs into a fellow rocker named Olivia, played by McKenna Grace, during a convenience store stop, and sparks fly. That subplot was inspired by Armstrong meeting his future wife, Adrienne, in 1990 while rolling through Minneapolis during Green Day's first tour. Their meet-cute moment? I was shooting bottle rockets at her, Armstrong confesses. A day after seeing Green Day play in a basement, she came up to Armstrong at the music club that was the band's next stop and inquired about buying records for her, as well as her friends in England. We became pen pals. Then she came out to California in 1991, and we got married in 1994. We've been together ever since. Green Day's infamous 1994 Woodstock appearance sparks Nimrod's mud fight. The Analog Dogs' trip west includes a stop where they play for a bunch of youngsters at an outdoor junkyard. When a rainstorm rolls in during their set, a joyful mud fight breaks out. In that are shades of Woodstock, 1994, where Green Day and the crowd flung mud at each other, and Dent wound up getting his front teeth knocked out by a security guard who mistook him for a fan. Better me than some kid in the crowd, Dern says. At the end of the day, we had a great time. In the moment, Cool, age 53, was enjoying himself because I was safely out of reach of incoming mud balls behind the drum kit, he recalls. I loved every minute of it until I saw this giant man on top of Mike. Adds Armstrong. When Mike got tackled, I jumped on top of the bouncer's head. I looked like Bugs Bunny as the masked marauder or something, and so I was punching that guy in the head. It was just nuts. In person and on screen, Green Day makes its fans famous. A Green Day concert is a major plot setting in Nimrod's, and in the movie, the band brings an excited fan on stage to play with them. That has been an actual band tradition since the mid-1990s, though audience participation has been a thing ever since Green Day's beginning. Some places we'd play, half the audience would be on stage holding the microphone, so I don't get kicked in the mouth from the moshing going on, Armstrong says. While in New Orleans on the Insomniac tour in 1996, Armstrong recalls being in a bit of a mood while playing the Operation Ivy song, Knowledge. I said, anybody out there want to play this thing? I just grabbed a kid out of the crowd. He put my guitar on. I showed him the 3 chords, and then this thing happened where everybody was involved in the show. It just kind of broke the barrier between us and the audience. Streaming. Did series of blunders spur the Manson murders? From Collier Richardson. The 1969 murders of actress Sharon Tate and 6 others, orchestrated by the wild-eyed cult leader Charles Manson, marked the end of the flower child era of the 60s and ushered in a dark, disturbing reality in the Hollywood Hills. The brutal killings carried out across 2 nights in the swanky Los Angeles neighborhoods fed media outlets for several months and have since become easy fodder for true crime retellings, from Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to the newly released documentary Conversations with a Killer, The Charles Manson Tapes, directed by Joe Berlinger. It's a horrifying story about a mastermind manipulating other people to do their evil bidding, where these people at the time of the crime, because of drug use and his influence, were remorseless, Berlinger tells USA Today. It was Hollywood's worst nightmare. In the 3-part docuseries, now streaming on Netflix, Berlinger challenges claims that Manson's motives behind the killings were to start a race war. Prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi swayed the jury and the general public into believing that Manson had an obsession with the Beatles' White Album and had concocted a race war he called Helter Skelter, named after the Beatles song. Bugliosi argued that Manson commanded his family members to murder affluent white people under the guise of the Black Panthers, an elaborate story that would later be portrayed in Bugliosi's best-selling novel, Helter Skelter. The August 8, 1969 victims included Tate, the pregnant wife of movie director Roman Polanski, coffee heiress Abigail Folger, celebrity hairstylist Jay Sebring, writer Wojciech Frykowski, and teenager Stephen Parent. Supermarket executive Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary LaBianca were stabbed and killed the following night. Through the help of new and old audio tapes and Manson family members, Berlinger argues that the murderous rampage began with a botched drug deal by a man named Bobby Beausoleil. He says in the doc that Manson invited biker gang Straight Satins to his ranch to provide female companions and protection from the Black Panthers. Beausoleil became friends with the bikers and bought them drugs from Gary Hinman. When the motorcycle crew was unhappy with the drugs, Hinman and Beausoleil got into a confrontation. Berlinger then believes Manson sliced Hinman's face with a sword, and Beausoleil stabbed him to death, smearing the words "political piggy" and a Black Panther paw printed in blood on the wall. As when Beausoleil got arrested, he became a liability to Manson, Berlinger says. It's actually just a series of blunders and bad planning by petty criminals, Berlinger says. And that's the story we're telling here. Berlinger talked to USA Today about the Charles Manson tapes, what draws him to serial killer stories, and the motivation behind Manson's killing. Question: what draws you to these kinds of stories, particularly around serial killers? Joe Berlinger: I'm just fascinated by why people go off the rails. I had an abusive father. He wasn't that nice to me. His father beat him up. My father beat me up. I guess psychologically, I wonder why, deep down, people do terrible things, despite their upbringing. So I think I have a personal connection there. Some might argue that when you tell a story from Charles Manson's perspective, it's insensitive to the victim or the victim's family. How do you strike a balance? I see and recognize the argument that by telling the story of a killer, it might not be something that the victims want. But I've turned down projects, or I've terminated projects, where the victims say, no, we don't want you to tell that story. So for all of these shows, I generally get victim approval and victim involvement in the show. Manson is an old enough story that doesn't apply. How do the unreleased tapes and conversations with a killer push the needle forward? We're not the first ones, but I think this is going to be a high-profile version of the story in which we poke holes in the helter-skelter idea. A lot of our unreleased tapes demonstrate that was not the case. The motives were much more banal. It was a series of blunders by a guy who was hustling other people. A drug deal gone bad gets Bobby Beausoleil in prison. Why do you believe Charles Manson thought Bobby Beausoleil was a liability? Bobby was a threat to him, being in prison because he could identify him in the Gary Hinman murder. So they went out and they did a murder and did the piggy and the Black Panther paw print to make it seem like it was connected to the Hinman murder. And then the next day, when the newspapers talked about the tape murders without any mention of the Black Panthers, he was frustrated and they went out and did another murder. So essentially, you're saying Manson's former family members have said the actual reason behind these killings was not Vincent Bugliosi's argument, but to get Bobby Beausoleil out of jail. To this day, the most popular true crime book ever published is still Helter Skelter. And so this false story has been imprinted in the cultural consciousness. I wanted to tell what I thought was the accurate story. We're giving this guy too much credit. That yes, he ranted and raved about a coming race war. Yes, he was racist. But the motivations for the murders were an unplanned series of blunders designed to correct mistakes that were made. What do you hope to leave viewers with? It was very important to do an effective investigation and tell the story that I think is the truthful story by listening to the family members who all say the same thing. This was not helter-skelter, and this was an attempt to get Bobby Beausoleil out of prison so he would do no damage to Manson. And one blunder led to the next. Sometimes evil is very banal, and there's not an elaborate reason. And yet this has become one of the most mythologized stories in the history of true crime. I wanted to poke a hole in that and just talk about what really happened. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time's 25 minutes after the hour. Television. A NSFW blooper on QVC is going viral. From Charles Trupney. It's the slip-up America seems to need right now. Over the past few days, Tony Brayton has gone viral for accidentally saying the NSFW phrase while showing off a wig during a QVC broadcast. Bratton is speaking about the wig in the clip, before quickly realizing she accidentally used a euphemism for oral sex instead of blowout. She then tries and fails to suppress her laughter as she collapses on the floor in embarrassment. Bratton opened up about the moment, which now has over 27 million views on Instagram, in an interview with TMZ. I know in my case, sometimes you never really know what's going to come out of my mouth, she told the outlet, noting that while hosting QVC, your brain has to be thinking of several things at once, which means mistakes are bound to happen. At the moment it comes out, you almost say to yourself, did I just say what I think I said? The internet has been loving this story, making jokes, sharing reactions, and commiserating with Bratton. Perhaps more importantly, the story of Bratton's flub has been a welcome contrast for many from the otherwise more upsetting stories in the news right now. Amid difficult reports about the ongoing Lindsay Clancy murder trial, conflict in the Middle East, and even the death of a beloved eagle named Jackie, Bratton's blooper might be just the mental break the country needs right now. We can tolerate just so much bad news before getting overwhelmed, says relationship therapist Philip Lewis. Humor is an excellent way to give our brains a break. Tony Bratton's NSFW flub and how humor heals. Turns out, in some cases, mental health experts say laughter really can be the best medicine. There's a time and place and season in our healing journey where humor is appropriate and sometimes even needed. Cecily Ahrens, a licensed clinical social worker, previously told USA Today. The ability to laugh with ourselves as opposed to at ourselves can be a sign of one's healing. And that approach of laughing with rather than of ourselves seems to be exactly the one Bratton's taken in the wake of her QVC blooper. Instead of retreating from embarrassment or moving on like the moment didn't happen, she's been making light of it herself and getting in on the joy it's brought to so many viewers. Everyone loves a good blooper, Bratton wrote on Instagram. This happens to be my biggest blooper in 30 years. I'm glad you're all laughing with me. Fans certainly are. Can she please win an Emmy for this and get a raise? One commentator wrote. This is my favorite video on the internet right now, wrote another. Where do I order the wig? Wrote another. The story also comes amid a time when there are some particularly heavy subjects making headlines. The Clancy trial remains underway, which involves a mother accused of killing her 3 young children. The Iran war continues to make people around the world feel uneasy. And on top of it all, the death of a beloved bald eagle, Jackie, has also hit some people especially hard. Can you blame anyone for wanting to play a silly QVC blooper on repeat? Laughter can help us release all the nervous energy that gets built up when we're stressed, Lewis says. People are getting bummed out by the news. When the world feels heavy, a human moment can remind us that life isn't all doom and gloom. What healthy humor looks like. Of course, humor isn't appropriate in every situation, and it's possible to have too much of a good thing. The key, Lewis says, is to make sure that humor is helping you process or providing a necessary break. If you find that the jokes you're cracking or only adding more negativity to a situation, it might be best to recalibrate. I always tell people to treat their emotions, feel them, allow them to come up as they can. But then you've got to take a break, Lewis says. The bad side to humor is when you use humor at the expense of someone else. Sometimes even when there's too much self-deprecating humor. There's enough doom and gloom out there. We want the humor to be light and playful. Books. Healing Expert Processes Grief Through Novel, from Josh Rivera. Grief is senseless. When I sat down with author Amy Boucher to discuss her upcoming young adult novel, The Unexpected Afterlife of Salon Rose, one phrase synthesized the affirmation you get from reading it. You don't have to make sense of loss to heal. Through fiction, readers can set aside their own trauma to explore someone else's in a safe environment. Sure, an emotional therapy healing expert knows that better than anyone. Her cousin Pam Schmidt was murdered at 12, just 5 days after her father died. Pam had planned to attend his memorial service. The night before Pam was killed, she left Sher a message asking to talk and run something by her. Because of timing and distance, they planned to speak the next day. Sher never learned what Pam wanted to discuss. That book really came from my after period of very intense grief, being like, I'm doing this falling apart, and I wonder what she's doing, Sher said with a laugh. She's got to be doing something, and I start to sort of imagine my conversations with Pam and how she would be on the other side and be like, what the hell? Processing grief, something everyone has or will likely experience in their lifetime, is central to Sher's work. But while the experience is universal, the navigation is individual. Bibliography, bibliotherapy has been proven to help those experiencing emotional distress and is preferable to no treatment at all. Fiction, specifically, has also been said to relieve stress and anxiety. It's important to know that grief is a full-body experience. Gina Moffa, a licensed clinical social worker and a grief and trauma therapist in New York, told USA Today. Fiction slips past our defenses because we think we're watching someone else's life. You cry for a character and realize you're crying for yourself. Without knowing it, the story itself becomes a kind of container that is strong enough to hold a feeling, or a lot of them, that you couldn't really approach or confront head on. While the story of her titular character, Salon Rose, isn't a retelling of Pam's story, it's inevitable to feel her presence and charm. Earlier versions adhered more closely to the facts of what happened to Pam. Sher eventually found that sticking to those facts kept her emotionally stuck. Creating a fictional world allowed her to imagine how Pam might have experienced the afterlife. Through an afterlife support group, Salon Rose tries to figure out her own murder before moving on to the great unknown. In real life, knowing the answers to all the questions about loss, or telling yourself someone is in a better place, doesn't make it hurt less, according to Sher. So all of our coping skills and our mechanism of rationalizing something doesn't work to lessen the pain. And the only way to get through it is to decide and make peace with the fact that it probably won't make sense. And then that's okay. While bibliotherapy isn't a substitute for mental health therapy and other treatments, experts agree that it can help in a holistic approach. Fiction can support our healing when it dramatizes complexity instead of just delivering lessons, Moffa said. When readers identify with a grieving character, something called narrative transportation can occur, blurring the line between reader and story. This can help people process emotions, see their reactions as normal, and find words for what they feel. But real grief doesn't follow a neatly planned plot. Moffa, who's the author of Moving On Doesn't Mean Letting Go, A Modern Guide to Navigating Loss, has a two-pronged approach. Continue. If you finish a chapter more able to name and allow what you feel and are more willing to talk about the loss out loud, please invite in different parts of life again. It's working. Stop. If your reading replaces connection and keeps you isolated, as well as if the grief itself feels bottomless, rather than beginning to come in waves, also stop if sleep or appetite starts slipping in one direction or another that leaves you weak and worn down, or the story becomes the only place your grief is allowed to exist. Is there a happy ending? A happily ever after is in the eye of the beholder. A prescient message through Celan's novel is that accepting grief as a part of life is just as powerful as healing. Stories that let contradiction stand are doing something closer to the truth, Moffat said. They give readers permission through mirroring rather than instruction. Here's a person who is still a mess and still whole. Though through Cher's own mental health work with teenagers, including queer youths and those without easy access to support, she has seen how isolation can intensify emotional pain. Cher herself carried guilt and questions about that missed conversation with Pam for years. Celan's story helped her accept that learning what Pam wanted to tell her might not have changed the outcome. It might only have created a different form of guilt. With the unexpected afterlife of Celan Rose, Cher managed to craft a light-hearted companion for anyone suffering through loss. Lifeline. Making Waves, Reese Weaver. Reese Weaver is trading her cowboy boots for Broadway. The former Dallas Cowboys cheerleader and breakout star of Netflix's America's Sweethearts, Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, is set to make her Broadway debut as Roxy Hart in the long-running musical Chicago. Weaver, age 24, will begin her Broadway run on September 7th at New York City's Ambassador Theater, and will take on the starring role for a 6-week limited engagement through October 18th. The role marks Weaver's next move after retiring from the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, following 3 seasons with the organization. It's your birthday, and who's celebrating today? Actor-writer Steve Martin turns 81. Director Win Winders, 81. Actor Susan St. James is 80. Author Danielle Steele, 79. Cartoonist Gary Larson, 76. Actor Jackie Harry, 70. Actor Marcia Gay Harden, 67. Actor Susan Olsen, 65. Entertainer, TV and radio personality Lady Bunny, 64. Actor Halle Berry, 60. Singer Anna Matronic from Sister Scissors, 52. Actor Mila Kunis, 43. And actor Marseille Martin, age 22. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time's 40 minutes after the hour. Section. Undeniable Influencer. It's a commentary. Westbrook loved a beautiful game, loved winning, and never, ever dialed things back. From Robert Zielinski. Russell Westbrook has hung up his sneakers and said goodbye to the game of basketball. The legendary point guard, known for breakneck athleticism in his peak and an unwavering passion, retired from the NBA on August 12th after 18 seasons. In the coming days, you're undoubtedly going to see some opinions about Westbrook damaging his legacy with his last few journeyman seasons, which isn't even true. about how he never fully adjusted to losing his athleticism as he aged, which also isn't true, about how he ultimately may have cost his various teams chances to win more often than he helped them. Ignore them all, every last one. They're not worth your time because they're missing the forest for the trees with what Westbrook was about at its core. As far as I'm concerned, Westbrook is one of the most influential players in basketball history, let alone just the NBA. Full stop. At his peak with the Oklahoma City Thunder, which culminated in a well-deserved MVP award in 2017, born of a season-long triple-double average, Westbrook was a vicious tornado of power. His motor, which is surely among the finest ever, was relentless. At times, I'm unsure he needed tangible fuel to keep going because his energy seemed perpetual, ceaseless. His ability to flip a game through an explosive ruthlessness no one ever on the court possessed was unmatched. I'm not denying Westbrook's latter non-Oklahoma City days didn't come without friction. There's probably a good reason he never stayed more than 2 seasons. More than 2 seasons with a single team after he left the Sooner State. Beyond a fiery personality that likely rubs some mellower teammates the wrong way, Westbrook's propensity for a back-breaking mistake or 2 per game is well documented. In this respect, Westbrook's short stint with the LA Lakers, where he and LeBron James butted heads, comes to mind most. But don't let the Lakers' internal narrative speak for Westbrook. It would be a disservice to Westbrook and basketball fans everywhere to let something like that cast a cloud over his undeniable place in the sport's history. I can say this with confidence because Westbrook remained an effective player well into his 30s. He did, in fact, step back and adjust to more of a 6-man role on several occasions, most notably with the LA Clippers and Denver Nuggets. He did, in fact, find a way to influence winning well, even when he was no longer a bona fide superstar, bending the outcomes of game to his will. He was not, and never was, a selfish one-trick pony, the way some might suggest. Let's take this sentiment a step further. Westbrook was likely never volatile or toxic the way some NBA circles still discuss him to this day. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle of an exhausting, short-sighted hyperbole is that tried to redefine Westbrook into a running joke of a player, not a guy who loved a beautiful game, loved winning, and loved, most of all, his almost countless teammates. Without Westbrook, we don't get the point guard versions of hulking dynamos like LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo. We don't see a rise of hyper-athletic guards who pressured and, very well, sometimes broke the rim. Without Westbrook, we don't get at least one established superstar name setting an example of punching in, putting in your best possible effort on the floor, and punching out every single night. Forget Westbrook wearing his heart on his sleeve. No, he had his heart tattooed to his body, never once tempering himself or his intensity in the heat of competition that invigorated him. In the modern era of the NBA, partly defined by the rise of load management and a subsequent crusade to mitigate it, Westbrook's inclination to never dial things back stood out like a sore thumb. It's not how he was wired. Even if you still think Westbrook was ultimately overrated, his place in the game of basketball deserves respect for this admirable approach to his job, his livelihood alone. Westbrook is one of the most important players of the 21st century. You can't tell the story of the NBA this millennium without him. When the 26-27 season tips off without Westbrook in October, we're going to miss him. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Sanders versus Watson, game battle unfolding, from Jarrett Bell. Shader Sanders or Deshaun Watson? Wait on it. Barring some unforeseen circumstance, this won't be the week that new Cleveland Browns coach Todd Monken settles on his starting quarterback. The Browns open the preseason on August 15th at Chicago, and Watson will start, playing the first half, while Sanders will take over in the second half. The next week, vice versa. From there, let's see what gives. Those are the ingredients for what's become so rare in the NFL, a legitimate training camp quarterback competition. That Monken has been alternating the days for Sanders and Watson to work with the first team unit throughout camp provides quite the barometer. It's close, Monken told USA Today Sports in an exclusive interview before a recent camp practice. People somehow think that, like, I have some hidden agenda, or like there's some preconceived notion. Is this what they think I do? I would just split the reps if I didn't think it was a competition? That would be really silly. If I thought one was the starter, I'd give him the 1 reps. So there. As much as Monken wants to make this call, and you'd think he's collected much intel for the big decision, given the work and organized team activities and minicamps, it's about the due diligence. Observers at the camp will tell you that both have had their moments, but apparently neither has been outstanding enough to pull away. Starting Shader Sanders makes sense for Browns. Then again, the Browns, who traded away their best player, defensive end Myles Garrett, are clearly in rebuilding mode. They had an outstanding draft last year under general manager Andrew Berry, landing the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in linebacker Carson Schlesinger, and getting impact players in running back Kinshawn Judkins and tight end Harold Fannin Jr. to fuel a youth moment. They're collecting premium draft picks, and Monken has arrived with a new system. For all of that, it makes much sense to start Sanders, the second-year pro who had the epic slide to the 5th round of the draft and wound up starting 7 games as a rookie. See if the kid can build on his first year, even if he'll work behind a rebuilt O-line, and establish himself as a potential long-term answer. Watson, on the other hand, costs a ton of money that will be paid, regardless, after coming to town with a fully guaranteed $230 million contract. Yet, given the off-field issues and injuries that have derailed Watson, it's hard to imagine the Browns going back to the bank for an extension after his contract expires after the season. Recent history hardly provides a clue. Sanders completed 56.6% of his passes last season, with a 7-to-10 touchdown to interception ratio. Watson, age 30, is a 10-year vet who had some sizzling seasons with the Houston Texans, but didn't play at all in 2025 while rehabbing from a ruptured right Achilles tendon. So, what's the rub? I know people want a simple answer, Monken said. I can only tell you that chances are, in this 100-mile radius, I'm probably the best equipped to figure it out. Probably. Just taking a shot there, maybe. And everybody else thinks I am, probably by nature of being hired, and my background. And I'm humble. I do not mean that as a bother, but I probably am the closest to having the idea, and I still could be wrong. How Todd Monken will decide between Shader Sanders and Deshaun Watson. Blunt and affable, Monken seems to have decided that while the spotlight on his decision intensifies, he'll embrace the banter. No doubt he's knee-deep into the details, grasping which quarterback has a better command of the system, which has been more consistent in practice, and which handles the physical demands. Yet this begs for more layers of evaluation under the lights in preseason. You go to practice, you watch them play as best as you can, Monken said. You play in the preseason with your system, and you're still not going to know for sure. Because I haven't been around them, I don't have a sample size. This is certainly an adjustment for the coach, who, in his last job as Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator, built his offense around a two-time MVP credentialed quarterback in Lamar Jackson. In Cleveland, long before Monken arrived, it's been one quarterback after another. Since the franchise reboot as an expansion operation in 1999, the Browns have had 42 quarterbacks start games, the most in the NFL during that span. Monken was surely hired with the idea of reversing that pattern of instability. Sure, whoever wins the job this summer might only turn out as a temporary fix. It's possible that Cleveland, with 2 first-round picks in 2027, will be back in the market for drafting a quarterback, unless, well, Sanders influences them to proceed otherwise. Then again, as much as Sanders might be a sentimental favorite, he's already one of the NFL's more popular players when it comes to jersey sales and marketing. The job can't be merely given to him without merit. He needs to earn the job through performance. Stay tuned. It stands to reason that Monken will make his decision before the final preseason game on August 27th against New England. But there's no rush. The moment I make that decision, what if I go 2 or 3 days and all of a sudden, what if the guy doesn't play as well? Monken said. Okay, now you've got to backtrack. And all those things that you go through, you've got to retract what you say. So that's just part of it. So you're better off until you know, let it play out, which is anything but a week-to-week proposition. The Basketball Hall of Fame will enshrine 9, from Elizabeth Flores. The Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2026 features 9 distinguished inductees that include WNBA legends, NBA and college coaches, and the iconic 1996 U.S. Women's Olympic team that captured gold in Atlanta. Among those selected for enshrinement by the North American Committee is Joey Crawford, one of the longest tenured officials in NBA history, who served for 39 seasons from 1977 to 2016. Also joining the class is college coach Mark Few, who has guided the Gonzaga Bulldogs to 25 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances. Former NBA star Amari Stoudemire is also being honored for his multiple All-Star selections. NBA coach Doc Rivers is another inductee, recognized for his 27 seasons as a head coach. Rivers' career highlights include leading the Boston Celtics to an NBA championship in 2008 and more than 1,000 career coaching wins while leading the Orlando Magic, Los Angeles Clippers, Philadelphia 76ers, and Milwaukee Bucks. The Women's Committee selected the 1996 Women's National Team, which captured the gold medal at the Summer Olympics in Atlanta. 3 standout WNBA players are also being honored. Elena Del Piane, a 2-time WNBA MVP in 2015 and 2019. Shamik Holdsclaw, the number 1 overall pick in the 1999 WNBA draft, and Candace Parker, a 3-time WNBA champion, 2-time MVP, and 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Rounding out the class from the Contributors Committee is Mark D'Antoni, a 2-time NBA Coach of the Year, 2005-2017, who also served as an assistant coach for the gold medal-winning 2021 U.S. Men's Olympic basketball team. McCarthy, Vikes decision out of my control, from Chris Bambaka. The Minnesota Vikings starting quarterback competition did not go J.J. McCarthy's way, with head coach Kevin O'Connell formally handing the reins to off-season acquisition Kyler Murray on August 12th. Speaking with reporters after the decision became public, McCarthy lamented that the competition was out of my control. Obviously, every competitor wants to play, McCarthy said via ESPN. But moving forward, it's just about continuing to work hard and just staying ready for when my number's called. Neither McCarthy nor Murray played that much better than the other through 10 training camp practices to have the clear upper hand, according to reports from Minnesota. McCarthy entered last season as the starter, but early ankle and hand injuries limited any consistent game experience. He lost his rookie season in 2024 to a torn meniscus he suffered during his first preseason action. Minnesota signed Murray, the 2019 number 1 overall pick, in March after he was cut by the Arizona Cardinals. O'Connell said McCarthy will be the backup, with Carson Wentz rounding out the quarterback depth chart. He's ready to go, O'Connell said of McCarthy. The guys on this team love him. We love him. But this is the direction we're going and moving forward. To me, McCarthy is still a guy that's only played 10 games. He's shown improvement off of last year, even in the training camp, with the work he's put in and his comfort level just growing a little bit in and day out. I'm still very excited to continue to get to work with him every single day, coach him. As he knows, he's holding the pen on his story, and we're going to support him and try to just help him continue to improve as a young player at the most difficult position in sports. He's got to also understand this isn't just a long-term mindset, which we want to have always for a player of his caliber and a young player like him. But it could be an immediate response needed. JJ is the kind of guy that'll be ready to rock and roll. I know that. McCarthy was asked why he felt like the competition had been beyond his control. There's so many things out of my control, like the heat today, he explained, and it's just really having the discernment to figure out which of the two quarterbacks. And that was one of the things outside of my control, and me attacking and optimizing every opportunity, which was in my control. And that's all I was focusing on. I couldn't control anything during. I couldn't control anything after. The only thing I could do is focus on the next rep and keep at it. The 10th overall pick in 2024, McCarthy said he wants to remain with Minnesota. This is the place I want to be, McCarthy said, and I love every single person in this building. I love the state. I love the fan base. And I'm going to continue to just do whatever I can for this team and this organization. Back to water, work for Fox after Major, from Anna Shupik. At the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am in February, the first tee starter announced Ryan Fox as the winner of the net division of the Seminole Pro member with his Pro-Am partner, Jimmy Dunn III, before proceeding to list off all the various accolades of fellow pro competitor Rory McIlroy, the reigning holder of the Masters green jacket. On August 13th, in Memphis, at the opening round of the FedEx St. Jude Championship, the starter had a new title for Fox, Champion Golfer of the Year. It's a distinction the 39-year-old New Zealand native can get used to hearing for a while, after sinking a 12-foot putt birdie putt in the final hole to win the 154th British Open at Royal Birkdale in Southport, England, to earn his first major title and possession of the claret jug for a year. It wasn't long before Fox was filling the iconic silver trophy with wine and discovering its capacity for various liquids. It comfortably fits one bottle of wine in it. We tried to tip a couple more, but it didn't quite fit properly. As the owner of a 500-bottle wine cellar, he dipped into it figuring if he couldn't drink his good stuff, including a Grand Vin Chateau Latour, to celebrate his biggest triumph of his golf career, he'd never drink it. One night, he rented a venue for a party of 50, and they drank 18 bottles of red wine out of the jug. Fox's 8-year-old nephews reportedly took a sip of water from it, too. It was nice to celebrate it properly. We did it pretty well. Maybe not as much as Shane Lowry, he said of the 2019 champ, who, in viral videos, consumed pints of beer from the jug at Irish pubs. But we could tell a couple of stories about our celebration. My liver needs a bit of a break. Sweating it out this week in Memphis and next week at St. Louis will probably help me. In the days that followed his victory, Fox took the claret jug home to New Zealand and made sure to enjoy his favorite steak, bacon, jam, and cheese pie at his local bakery, and squeezed in some fishing when he wasn't showing off the trophy. Fox said he declined a parade, but upwards of 3,000 people still gathered in Auckland for a Q&A at Tukatai Square to celebrate New Zealand's 4th major golf champion, and only the 2nd Kiwi to lift the claret jug, following Sir Bob Charles in 1963. Golf NZ acting chief executive officer Greg Thorpe called Fox's win a landmark moment for golf in New Zealand. Mayor Wayne Brown crowned the accomplishment alongside the likes of America's Cup victories, a recent gold medal in swimming at the Commonwealth Games, and golf successes by Lydia Ko, a 3-time major champion, including the 2024 Women's British Open, and Michael Campbell, the 2005 U.S. Open winner. Fox was glowing that sunny afternoon, bathing in the sounds of the Love Fest. The warm reception reminded Fox of how Campbell's win at Pinehurst, number 2, more than 2 decades ago, had inspired him to take golf more seriously as a teenager. I was like, wow, this is a little different. All of a sudden, I'm kind of walking in his shoes, Fox said of the hero's welcome home. It's weird to think how I'm going to be like that for golfers in New Zealand now. Fox also brought the jug to camp with the All Blacks, the country's famed rugby team, of which his father Grant is one of the most heralded stars, where beer was the liquid of choice to be consumed from the trophy. But now he's ready to drink Gatorade and sweat out the FedEx Cup playoffs in muggy Memphis, calling it an important week to get back into his routine and chase another sought-after trophy of the sterling silver variety. Entering the week at number 22 in the season-long FedEx Cup standings, he's seeking to make it to East Lake and the Tour Championship, the playoff finale with its 30-man field, for the first time in his career. After his life-changing victory and sudden fame and new demands, he has the time. Fox hopes the golf course can be his sanctuary. I know at golf tournaments there's going to be a whole lot more interest. There's going to be a whole lot more scrutiny on how I play and everything like that, Fox told reporters last week in New Zealand. I'm looking forward to getting back on tour. It'll be a very different vibe. But I've said it a few times, this was always the dream, and if I'm not prepared to live with the consequences, good and bad, of it, I shouldn't have made a dream in the first place. So I'll roll with the punches in that regard. Nielsen. Advertising on women's sports up 120% for Mitchell Northam. Women's sports are booming. More people are watching women's sports, from the women's NCAA tournament to the NWSL, and more women are watching sports, including NASCAR and the NFL. That's all according to analysis from Nielsen that breaks down the numbers and viewership in its Women in Sports report. For Nielsen, 28.6 billion minutes of women's sports were consumed in the first 6 months of the year, which is up 18% over 2025's data. Nielsen's report also shows a 120% increase in advertising spending on women's sports since 2022. And its study shows that 122 million Americans, more than half the population, are interested in women's sports. The rise in popularity of women's sports isn't just a fleeting trend. It's a cultural realignment where access to games, storytelling around athletes, and ongoing investment from brands are changing the economy and energy of global sports, said Charlene Polite-Corley, Vice President of Inclusive Insights for Nielsen. Nielsen says the commercial viability of this shift is best shown by the rise in sponsor valuations across major leagues. The WNBA has seen a 71% increase, the WNSL an 82% surge, and the LPGA a 51% gain. At the same time, Nielsen says a shift is also happening where women are increasingly staking their claim as passionate fans for men's sports too. In one example, Nielsen's reports states that 46% of NASCAR fans, nearly half, are women, and of the 7.4 million people that turned into the 2026 Daytona 500 race, 2.7 million of them were women. Here's a few more key data points for women's sports. Fans have consumed 3.8 billion minutes of the 2026 WNBA season, and the league is on pace to break last year's mark to become the most watched season ever. The gold medal game for women's hockey at the Winter Olympics drew an average of 5.3 million viewers on USA Network and peaked at 7.7 million viewers, making it the most watched women's hockey game ever on record. For WUCLA's win over South Carolina in the women's college basketball title game, 9.9 million people tuned in, making it the third most watched women's college basketball game on record. The 2026 Women's College World Series reached an all-time high total of 30.7 million unique viewers, up 54% year over year in viewership for the most watched softball tournament ever. For ESPN, 15 games topped 1 million viewers and secured 8 slots in the Nielsen Top 25 ratings amid playoffs for the NBA and NHL. The 2026 Wimbledon tennis tournament drew an average of 1.9 million viewers to the final between Linda Noskova and Karolina Muchova, delivering ESPN's most watched women's championship match for the tournament. The 2025 NWSL Championship on CBS was the first broadcast in league history to surpass 1 million viewers, drawing in an average of 1.18 million. ESPN's coverage of the 2025 NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament increased by 13% year over year, drawing an average of 667,000 viewers. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for August 14th. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Nancy.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 10 of Wayward Girls by Susan Wiggs. At 3 o'clock, we have the New York Magazine, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a serial